And we have breaking news now. Freedom Caucus Chair Mark Meadows has uncovered two new texts that implicate the Obama White House in the initial steps of the Trump campaign investigation. Meadows asking Deputy Attorney General Rod Rosenstein why the October 2016 text between FBI Attorney Lisa Page and former FBI Deputy Director Andrew McCabe were not turned over to Congress as requested, and whether the texts are being intentionally withheld from lawmakers. Well, joining me now to help shed some light on all of this, Congressman Matt Gaetz. He serves on a number of very important committees, including Judiciary, Budget, and Armed Services. Congressman, great to have you with us. Let's start with the Meadows revelation in this letter to the Department of Justice. What is going on here? It's just one after another. And the question has to be asked, are you people at Justice withholding information? Obviously they are.
Yeah, Lou, that question is affirmatively answered, that the Justice Department has lacked sufficient production, and they've not been sufficiently forthcoming when it comes to messages. You'll recall that there were text messages between Peter Strzok and Lisa Page regarding Strzok's personal friendship with a FISA judge. Those were not national security sensitive, and yet they were redacted and not provided to Congress. Also, there was the famous text message, infamous I should say, where Strzok says, no, he won't, we'll stop him, regarding the Trump presidency. That was not originally produced by the Department of Justice. So this is now a pattern. The Department of Justice is not giving us the information that we're requesting in a timely fashion. When we do get a trickling of information, it's far too heavily redacted, and there have to be consequences as a result.
Well, you know, we've been hearing that. Congressman, you and I both know it. We've heard threats. We've heard them from Nunes. We've heard them from, various people in Congress. And it all comes to nothing. Why should anyone at the Department of Justice or FBI sweat you guys at all?
We have got to, I think, get more people on the Republican side in Congress enthusiastic about our oversight responsibilities. I mean, the Deputy Attorney General, Rod Rosenstein, said that Congress has no constitutional authority, to conduct oversight.
He says you guys are all extortionists. Are you kidding me?
Yeah, and so, I mean, Lou, we need a critical mass of Republicans to favor the sanctions, the contempt, and potentially the impeachment of Rod Rosenstein if we don't see the Justice Department complying with our oversight demands. I mean, look, at the end of the day, Lou, it's either elected people or it's unelected people who make the final call. And if unelected people get to make the final decisions regarding their own oversight, we have eroded this republic, and I don't think we should stand for it.
Well, I agree with you. I don't think, as you well know, I don't think we should stand for it at all. Not another minute, not another second. But the fact is, unelected people, as you call them, I call them the deep state, are running all over you guys. The Department of Justice is running you. The FBI is running you, stalling you, for absolutely frustrating you guys at every turn. And by the way, they worked out a special counsel deal, a witch hunt. First, 11 months of investigation by the FBI into collusion with the Russians, between the Trump campaign and the Russians, and then a special counsel, just to add a little zest to it all, that is actually running, right now, running every effort to subvert this president. I mean, we're not talking rhetorically.
I agree with you.
These are unelected folks running the country right now.
I agree with your criticism. It is a fair one. But I would add that our oversight work in the Congress has resulted in a lot of firings, terminations, demotions. You look, Comey's gone, McCabe gone, Page and Strzok gone, Rubicki, who was the chief of staff at the FBI, gone, James Baker, the leaker, gone.
Am I going to hear you cheer for Christopher Wray, the president's choice, to succeed him? Because he looks every bit as recalcitrant and uncooperative as James Comey. He isn't quite as cute and precious in his testimony, but he's every bit as smug and smirking.
I would say that Christopher Wray has got an opportunity to do the right thing. I would hope that he would seize it. To date, there have been things he's done that I've been in agreement with regarding, standing up for the rank and file at the FBI, but there is no defense for the actions of Strzok and Page and Comey and McCabe, and I would hope that Christopher Wray would want to get to the bottom of this as President Trump's pick to lead the FBI. We need more out of him. Your criticism is a fair one, and I'm trying to encourage him to do the right thing.
Well, good for you. And I want to turn, if we may, to all of the criticism that now is focused on the President of the United States. He apparently didn't meet the expectations of the Dems, the left-wing national media, rhinos, and conservatives. I'm trying to figure out how he'll ever be able to withstand such a calamity as not meeting the expectations of those fine Americans.
Well, President Trump has a unique style, and sometimes the game you're watching is not always the game being played. You'll remember in North Korea, he was calling Kim Jong-un Little Rocket Man, while at the same time he was establishing a platform for diplomacy and negotiation, and now it's almost a year since we've had the last nuclear test in North Korea. And so here you may have witnessed the president being perhaps a little lighter than we would have expected on Putin publicly, but they were behind closed doors for a far longer period of time than they were in front of the cameras. The president and Putin both said that the president raised the issue of election meddling. It is my belief that the Russians did meddle in our elections and in elections all over the world. I also think that this country has an unfortunate past, as recently as the Obama administration, meddling in elections in Israel, in the Balkans, in coordination with George Soros groups. And so, I think we can all recognize that none of us are virgins here. The United States and Russia have both meddled in elections, and I think that neither should do that going forward. And we ought to hold both governments accountable whenever that occurs.
Well, you know what I think? Everybody ought to be a grown-up, and also they should have triple-digit IQs. Anyone who thinks that the Obama administration wasn't meddling in it, by our count, about 7 elections, and that's directly with the One Voice group over the course of years, and diverting taxpayer money to fund an outcome that was decidedly not in the national interest, but in the interest of an Obama White House. I mean, where was the outcry? Where was the outrage? Where was the wringing of hands and just self-righteous nonsense that is emanating from all of those quarters? And I'm talking about from left to right, the national left-wing media, of course, and not one of them smart enough to understand what was going on in elementary civics, let alone geopolitics in 2018.
Well, and as is typical, Lou, the left has missed the big story here on non-proliferation of nuclear weapons. In Iran and in North Korea, Russia can be very helpful at bringing pressure to bear so that we don't see widespread proliferation of weapons of mass destruction, and the media doesn't want to talk about that at all. They just want to criticize the president instead of focusing on the anti-terrorism and the non-proliferation efforts that I think were very productive today.
Well, a grand jury has been summoned in the case against the lying, leaking, fired deputy director of the FBI, Andrew McCabe. The Washington Post reporting that federal prosecutors are using the grand jury to investigate whether McCabe purposely misguided officials over his role in the unauthorized disclosures to the Wall Street Journal and other issues as well. House Freedom Caucus Chairman Mark Meadows calling on the DOJ Inspector General to investigate links between Bruce Ohr and the author of the bogus Trump dossier. In a letter, Meadows demanded a probe into whether Ohr and others broke from established protocol to further their investigation and surveillance of the Trump campaign. Ohr continues to work at the Justice Department despite links to the smear merchants Fusion GPS, who commissioned the discredited dossier authored by one Christopher Steele. Joining me now, Victoria Tinsing, the former Justice Department official, outstanding attorney, and following all of these developments as few can with her eye and talent. First, great to have you here. Let's start with this grand jury. This reported first in the Washington Examiner. Your thoughts about the timing and the propriety?
Oh, Lou, the timing, let me see. It's about time, don't you think? I mean, how long have we gone? And I want to know what else is being done, because when Jeff Sessions came out with a big to-do about bringing in Huber, the U.S. attorney from Utah, the one thing he was supposed to look into was uranium-1, and my client has never been contacted, and that was over 8 months ago. So, I think they're kind of slow.
Kind of slow. It looks like they're trying to, I think the cliche is run out the clock. The more appropriate and still cliched Stonewall is what really comes to mind. defying the Constitution and the executive branch, specifically the White House and this president, also obviously clear.
I agree. And where's Peter Strzok? I mean, there's a whole bunch of people that should be in this. Bruce Orr. There's a whole lot of people that should be before this grand jury.
And is there any reason, by the way, why they shouldn't bring other people before this grand jury? Why it should be limited to McCabe, given all that we know?
What struck me about the story, and I was just learning it as I was sitting here, was only McCabe? Really?
Right. Yeah. Well, let's turn to, if we may, the issue of evidence that Peter Strzok, Lisa Page, McCabe, Weissman all knew about Bruce Orr and his wife Nellie, who was working at Fusion GPS, and they knew about it before the FISA applications were even filed. Does that strike you as surprising, or can anything surprise any of us after what we have witnessed here in corruption in Washington?
Well, no, Lou, it doesn't surprise me at all. It's consistent with what is all coming out bit by bit, but very, very slowly. And I want to go to the congressman's call for declassification of FISA.
Right.
Because let's be very clear about what happened here. Carter Page was the target of the Obama administration wanting to get a leg in to the Trump campaign. And that's what it was all about. And they used Carter Page, as they said, power was abused and the FISA court was lied to. They used Carter Page by lying to the FISA court. And just real quickly, in 2013, Carter Page was an asset, an FBI asset, and helped the FBI indict a Russian spy.
Yeah.
When they're applying for the surveillance, they make it look like Carter Page was in cahoots. Carter Page gave a speech at a Russian university in the fall of 2016. You know who else gave a speech at that same Russian university? Barack Obama. But they're using these things to the FISA court to get their surveillance on him. Then they unmasked him and leaked it to the press.
It seems to me like we're watching a narrowing of the window here that was very small to begin with into the events and the people responsible for the toxic atmosphere in both the FBI and Department of Justice leadership. But this is not an accident. We are watching some distancing, it seems to me, from those events. And the first effort that looks possible to see a declassification of documents is at hand. The president, is there any rational reason on earth that he would resist declassifying those FISA documents that have already been seen in unredacted form by the intelligence committees, or at least they were given the opportunity to see those documents in both the House and the Senate?
And they feel so strongly that those should be declassified that you have to give great deference to them. And here's my message to the president. If you're not on offense, you're on defense. So you better get them out there. Yeah, get those documents out there.
This is a president who relishes being on the point of the spear and launching it rather than taking more incoming as he has to put up with every day. Victoria, it's always great to see you. We thank you so much. Victoria.
Good to be here, Lou.